Hello there. The purpose of this video is to give you the very basic steps required to get started calibrating with your ADT ADT681 gauge and ACal software. For information on the installation process, general introduction videos, or more detailed manuals and guides, ADT have a few videos on YouTube, which are easily found. Just search for ADT ACal. And the literature will be found as part of the download when you install the program. So let's get started. I have in front of me an ADT ADT681 digital gauge, an ADT hand pump, and some analog pressure gauges that I'm hoping to calibrate today. We're going to go through the steps required to set up the calibration solution, take readings, and then review the results and generate the calibration certificate. First of all, I've connected the 681 gauge to my laptop using the RS-232 port on the back of the 681 gauge. This will allow us to capture data from the gauge automatically as we go along. Okay, so this is the home page that greets you when you open ACal. We're going to go straight to the Cal Center. And if this is the first time you've opened ACal, you'll have nothing here. You're told to enter the calibration solution library. So that's what we shall do. So down the left-hand side here are some template calibration solutions provided by ADT. A lot of them use ADT's own products. And we have here ADT ADT681 pressure calibration solution. So we'll give that a tick. And down the right-hand side, we see that we're going to be using some kind of pressure source, a pump, and an ADT ADT681 digital pressure gauge. So this is the one that we want to use. Okay, now that we've got the solution available, we can select it and start cal. Okay, we're going to run into problems at this stage because at present we haven't configured any ADT681 digital pressure gauges. No problem, we hit config. And we click on this icon here to search for any gauges which are connected over RS-232. And okay, it seems to have fixed it up. So we'll save that. Re-verify. Happy days. So now we're into the calibration program. A couple of things we need to do before we start. We need to configure the reference. As our list is empty, we click add, and this is the digital gauge that we've just picked up over RS-232. It's dragged across some very basic information about the gauge, the type of gauge it is, and its serial number. We'll look at adding the calibration cert number, etc. later on. Okay, so we've set this as our reference gauge, and we can close. Next, we need to add DUT. So we've got a couple of options here. Query DUT if we've already entered the details in the DUT register. As this is the first time we've opened the software, we don't have the analog gauges logged anywhere, so we're going to add DUT. Okay, this brings up a window where we're going to add in the information about our pressure gauge. The fields which have got a yellow background are mandatory, needs to be something there. So we'll quickly go through this now. Serial number, device and the test name. So it's a Z-Flow branded 1000 kPa gauge. 100 mil dial size. All the stuff in white we can add in. Order number might be a helpful one if you're performing the calibration as part of an order for a client. But we're just going to keep this fairly simple. So 0 to 1000 kPa, 5 kPa resolution, Cal cycle 12 months, and it's never been calibrated before, so we'll leave the calibration data empty. Calibration profile. So this is where we're going to set up how many cycles, whether it's ascending pressures only or a round trip. And for the purpose of keeping this video short, I'm just going to make this a simple 3-point cal, 0, 1,000. And we'll delete out those last two lines. And we'll just make it one way. Okay. Okay, beautiful. So we hit save, and now we have our device under test, and that's everything we need to get going. So once we've got our gauge and reference digital gauge connected, everything's been exercised, we can hit start test. Just asked to confirm a few details. So even though there's a calibration profile set for this gauge, we can customize it for this one calibration without changing the information of the gauge itself. As found or as left data, we'll leave it as found for now. And recommend you leave tapping unticked. Otherwise, you're going to be asked to take a reading before you tap the gauge and after you've tapped the gauge, which in practice, we wouldn't usually do. Okay. So when we're stable at the test pressure, we'll be prompted to enter the gauge reading. Here we go. So this will pop out from the side, and you got a couple of ways of entering the displayed pressure. So you can just type the number in here. You can use the plus and minus buttons, and also down here you can use the graphic to click instead. Okay, so the reading there is 2, and now it's asking us to go to 500 kPa. So I'm just setting up our hand pump. As you'll notice on the left-hand side, we're getting live readings directly from the gauge. I'll approach 500, give that a couple of moments to settle. Okay, give the gauge a tap. And it's reading a touch high, about 1 count high, so I'll put 505 in there. It's worth noting as well, the auto capture of data works well if you use on nominal testing, where you prefer to take the needle to the exact point and take the reference reading instead, because we capture that reference reading live. Okay, happy with that. Confirm input, and head up to 1,000 kPa. Again, we can give her a few moments to stabilize. This is industrial gauge with 5 kPa resolution, so we don't need to wait too long. Give it a tap. Okay, and it's reading bang on 1,000 kPa. Okay, we are done. So on this page, we can review the cal record and preview the certificate before we do anything else. So just click on review cal record. And this gives us an opportunity to enter any information. So if you want to record the ambient temperature, and it's changed since when we started. Reference information is there. Any notes? 3-point test only. The demo. And if you want to add a laboratory address in place, things like this you can add in the background to come up automatically. You've got quite good control over default and background settings. Okay, so we are max 5 kPa, which is well within tolerance. So what I'd like to do is save this as an as left record as well, instead of as found, because we're not going to make any changes. So I copied all that information over, and we can delete the as found data. Okay, let's take a look at what the certificate will look like. And the preview modes will allow us to look at how the certificate will be laid out before the software goes ahead and generates a PDF document. Okay, so we've captured all the information there. All of this is customizable. You can go under the bonnet, change the logo, select what information appears. For example, if the manufacturer of the unit under test isn't particularly interested, you can take that out. Get your calibration results, and you also get a graph showing percentage error against set point. Okay, everything looks fairly good to me there. So let's come back out of that and generate certificate. Okay, brilliant. So we're done. So if we close the calibration program page, we head back to ACal, the main area. Now, in the data center, if we hit refresh, this pulls up the calibration record. So had we not generated the certificate, we still would have been able to come back later, look at the results, and issue the certificate. We did issue the certificate, so that appears in our certificate page. Now, before we started, the reference and DUT pages would have been empty. If we refresh references now, because we've used them in a calibration, we do get some basic information coming across. Now, ideally, we would have liked the traceability to have the reference certificate number appearing there. So we could have done this before we'd started the calibration as well. If we'd added the reference and the certificate number in, then we would have captured the reference's certificate number. Any other information you'd like to add? Accuracy, this is a 0.2% of full-scale accuracy gauge. Okay, so that information goes in there. Calibration dates, I can see it was done in May 2019. Okay, cool. So now if we were to do a calibration again, it would bring that extra information across onto the cert. Another thing to note, I did have some other pressure gauges saved in here before we started. This is the one that we've added as part of that calibration solution just then. If we go back to the Cal Center and start Cal again, we can in fact add more than one device under test to the calibration. So if we just select multiple gauges and confirm, then we'll get 2 windows come across. Note that we can only use one calibration profile. So when we hit start test, we're going to be asked which points to test at. And this will apply to every device under test that we're going to be calibrating. So when the data entry window appears now, there's going to be multiple lines, device under test 1 and device under test 2. Okay. I won't complete this calibration. Other things to note, if you did want to enter your devices under test before you started, you can do that here. If you have similar devices under test, there's a copy function, and you can just go in and change the serial numbers. And there's also a batch add function. So you enter all the same details, but instead of coming up in a window which is light out, it comes up in table format, and this will allow you to add as many devices under test as you like in one go. And you can even import this information from an Excel spreadsheet if you've already got it written down there. Okay, so yeah, as mentioned at the start, for more in-depth instruction information, you've got the videos on YouTube from ADT or the user manuals. That's it. Thanks a lot.